guest today has been releasing music for, I'm going to say, about 12 to 13 years, which is really a brand of sort of sparse West Coasty hip hop tinged with R&B and soul. All the time in each release, showing a progressive approach and a high degree of emotional intelligence in the subject matter, and how to connect with his audience. His story is remarkable, not least because he lost his sight early in his life, but he's navigated the many obstacles he's faced with, for me, persistence and resilience, wearing his heart on his sleeve, as the saying goes. And very recently, he's made some telling statements on the real challenges of being an artist, musical artist in 2024. And he's done it in front of camera as well for the hellscape that is social media, which always gives me a sense of awe when anybody does that. His latest 8-track album, Mixed Feelings, came out about a month ago as we're recording this, and is another sonic progression and features a rich bunch of collaborators. And for no particular reason, I'm just going to mention one of them, which is Fernando Perez, and he's really delicious. I think it's a Spanish guitar on the album's wonderful closer, Blue Dreams, which ends with the words, "If you love something, let it go. But what if it doesn't come back?" So enough from me,
Mm.
and it's a real honor to introduce DRAGG to you, and we're going to have a fantastic conversation. DRAGG, welcome, and thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much. That was some introduction. I don't think I've had an introduction like that in a while. That was
I,
beautiful. That was
I,
absolutely
do you know,
beautiful.
I just I love doing this sort of stuff. Like I'm the sort of person that I kind of like to be prepared. So and I like listening to sort of music in its entirety, because like an album
Absolutely.
in its entirety, because it for me it kind of tells a story. So, and it helps me understand. Maybe just give me a bit of sort of insight into sort of what's going through the artist's mind as they're kind of writing it, and sort of putting together the running order, things like that, and
Mhm.
that helps me kind of write those sort of intros, I suppose.
Yes,
So
yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
glad you
No,
indulged me anyway.
yeah, no, I absolutely enjoyed that. That was brilliant. I might even sample it and use it in one of my next projects at some point, as like an intro or something.
Oh, brilliant!
But yeah.
I'd be totally honored. I'd be totally honored, honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you just said there is actually is pretty much spot on because, like, when we basically, as an artist, as a creative, when you put together a project, you want people to listen from top
Mm,
to bottom. You want people to get context.
mm,
This is why I kind of don't like this new way of doing things where it's all about playlists. Like people
yeah.
basically like, I like this song and that song and that song, and then they basically putting a bunch of songs in a playlist, which is, it's convenient, it's okay, but from a
Mm,
creative standpoint, it takes away from what the artist is trying to say because you're
mm,
listening to a particular track out of context, basically. So you're not getting the full picture of what's
yeah.
going on. So yeah, so as you so described very well there, that's kind of what I was trying to do with mixed feelings. Really, I thought,
Mm,
okay, people don't want to sit for 2 hours and listen to an album anymore. They don't have that kind of attention span. So how can I
mm.
get a story across in a long enough time, but not too long for you to be like, okay, I've had
It's
enough. You
interesting,
know what
isn't
I
it?
mean?
It's
Yeah.
really
So
interesting, isn't it?
yeah,
This
yeah,
this sort of whole thing with I mean, what you say there about playlists and attention spans, I
yeah,
completely with you on that. And
yeah.
from some of the a lot of conversations that I've had,
Hmm.
that this issue has come up a lot
Hmm.
with musicians, that
Yeah.
it's a it's like with anything, it's like a body of work. It's something that you've
Yes.
put so much, you know emotional input into it to sort of create it, and
Yeah.
then
Absolutely.
the industry kind of distills it down to sometimes even a sort of 30 seconds snippet of it, that, and I don't know
Yes.
how you can how you can grasp what an artist is trying to say in the full meaning, with that sort of thing. But this is the world that we live in, isn't it?
That's the world we live in, and honestly, to answer that, I don't think people, the listeners of today,
Mm,
I would say probably maybe 30 and below, late 20s and below, they're
mm,
not listening for the context. They're listening to sort of, I guess the thing that's remained the same for me, in my experience, the thing that's remained the same as music is still a soundtrack to people's lives, right? So once upon a
yeah,
time,
yeah.
you would listen, I don't know, Led Zeppelin, whoever, Freddie Mercury, whatever you were into, right? And you
Mm,
would
mm,
go on a road trip with your family. You would remember, oh yeah, we was off to, I don't know, Skegness or whatever, and my dad was playing this album, and it took 2 hours, and I listened to all of it. Or you
yeah,
remember that school summer holiday, and what album was, you know what I mean? So it's still a
absolutely.
soundtrack in that sense. But now the difference is people are looking for clips that actually narrate whatever they're up to. So it's like if there's one line in the song, they want
Mm,
that particular part to post with that perfect carousel on Instagram or that perfect
yeah,
reel on TikTok. So now they're
yeah.
looking for a moment within the entire 1 hour project. They're like, which part resonates with what I'm doing?
Interesting.
And that's the part that I'm going to focus on. And that's the part then everybody else decides, oh, that's the cool part.
Mm,
That sounds really cool. So I'm going to take that and then remake. And I actually, funny enough that we're speaking about this, I actually run an experiment on
mm.
this. Sorry, I'm sort of all over the
No, no,
place a little
no,
bit.
no. Please,
But
no. It's
but
fascinating. It's fascinating. Honestly, I love
but
it.
to William in Monte Casino, which is the first track in this project, right?
Mm,
That is a very location specific kind of track, and it's a specific experience to me. But I wrote it intentionally, trying to experiment with this exact thing that we're speaking about, and
mm,
I've kind of run some little tests on TikTok and stuff to see if I post certain clips of it,
yeah.
and surprisingly, people are creating their own versions of it. I've got beauty
Wow.
influencers using it because there's a part where I'm talking about pretty eyebrows and pretty contours and pedicures,
Yeah.
and there's parts where there's certain words, trigger words
Mm,
that people resonate with, and then they're like, oh, that would fit with my content, and then they use it to
mm.
recreate, and you're like, wow, okay, so this
It's
is really
interesting.
how the world works now. You know what I mean? Like it's no
It's
longer
really.
yeah. Sorry,
uh,
go on. Go
No, no,
ahead.
no. I think that's really fascinating. I mean, I love that sort of stuff that it kind of gives you. It's almost like kind of life is kind of psychology, isn't it? And sort of,
Yes.
understanding what how people's brains work, and
Yes.
like you say, kind of finding those snippets, those parts that
Hmm.
really really sort of resonate with people. I guess the challenge is that um for some people those snippets will be real. They will
Yes.
can very relatable to what's going on in their own
Hmm.
life. And then there are
Yes.
others that maybe use it for less savory sort of for the
Yeah.
purely for the because they know that those words
For,
resonate with a certain group of people, and they use
yes.
those for
For the
their own reasons.
engagement,
But
basically.
that's,
Yeah.
for the engagement, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately the algorithm doesn't know the difference, and the artist
Mm,
stands to benefit, I guess, in the sense, because if
mm,
somebody is using your song because I don't know, they want to criticize it, or they want to say positive things about it, or they
mm,
want to use it for their own gain, the algorithm basically just says, oh, this song by Drag is popular, and it just keeps pushing
mm,
it. So and then what
mm.
happens is it creates this dichotomy where you start chasing the algorithm because you're like, oh,
Yes.
that's working. Now I should do more of that. And then this is how you
Yeah,
end up with 1 minute long songs because people
yeah.
realize that, look, sometimes people don't want to hear the 10-minute song with an amazing solo and the
Mm,
blah, 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 and this break and the beat. Like, it doesn't really
yeah,
work that well. I think unless if you've already got like a huge audience, like
yeah.
a cult following type of thing, where people are there and they're like, you know what? He's an amazing guitarist. He's an amazing key, and I'm here for that solo. I want to hear, if
Mm,
you're sort of in that pop space where people are just throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks, it's
yeah.
very, very different, and it changes the process of how you write as well as a writer.
What
Because
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, actually, sorry to
Yeah, no, no,
interrupt.
it's okay. It's okay.
No, yeah, that's a really good point, because one of the thing that worries me about this is how because social media is such a big part of our lives now that
Absolutely.
sort of chasing this kind of algorithm. I think it's got it probably does. I'm sure that it does. It changes people's behaviors. It changes the way that they write. Even kind of type into captions. Because there are certain ways of writing that need to happen. So you kind of, I just think it's running the risk that you know, like as a sort of human race, that our behaviors are being changed to something that we're not.
Absolutely. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head there. It changes the way how you write your captions. And this is what I was about to say. As a writer, this
Mm,
is where then you kind of like when you're writing, you're thinking, okay, what would sound good on the caption? Because you know people
mm,
would take a line from your song and use it as a caption, right?
yeah.
So,
Yes,
and then
yes.
that then triggers, because this is something I actually didn't realize until quite recently.
Mm,
Things like Spotify and all that, they use a form of AI, like an algorithmic
mm,
AI that reads, that scans the internet basically for keywords
mm,
about songs. So it's not just for your song to perform well on Spotify or these kind of platforms, your song needs to be spoken about outside of these platforms. So it
mm,
scans Instagram, Twitter, Google, everything, and it will search, for example, drag mixed feelings and see what other people are saying. And if there's
right.
dialogue around it, it feeds it back to the algorithm and tells listeners within the platform, hey, you might want to hear this because everybody else is talking about it, type of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So those captions are kind of important because if people are typing lyrics out of your songs, because when we submit songs to DSPs, we send the lyrics, we send everything. So every word, everything is there. That's how you can Shazam
Mm,
songs, and that's how you can basically. So it knows at all times, and it creates a really difficult space because
yeah.
you can't really you have a very short time to express yourself. Like you can't waste a line anymore. Like I think once upon a
Yeah.
time you used to listen to an album and you'd have like maybe five tracks that are kind of fillers, really. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
yeah. There'll be nice songs, but they just like, they fit, and it's like now it's
Yeah.
like, nope, streamline it down, make it straight to the point, no long
Mm.
intros, because if you have a 8 bar intro, by that point somebody skipped your track, you know what I mean? And it's like
How do
anyway.
how do you feel that almost that necessity
Hmm.
of how does that impact your authenticity, in what you're writing? How, because if you let's say take a sort of situation where where social media doesn't exist and you're kind of
Yeah.
writing, do you feel that that in any way it's kind of intruding on authenticity?
Yes, because funny you should ask that. I was having this conversation with somebody I think a week ago.
Mm,
And we were discussing TikTok and other stuff, and they were saying about, TikTok is just more authentic. And I was like, what people classify as authentic is
mm.
carefully curated authenticity. It's not
Oh,
random, right? It's not like you're just
yeah.
eating a sandwich and then you just take a picture, a video of you eating a sandwich and going on about your day, and then it goes viral. It's
Yeah.
carefully curated,
Carefully.
right? So
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
more like, okay, I'm gonna do this and this, but I'm gonna try and make it look as natural. It's like reverse engineering the
Yes.
authenticity, right? So
Mm,
to answer your question, it's impossible, I think, in 2024 to not let that seep into your subconscious because as a writer, as a
mm,
creative, you know that this is a big driver of what happens. DSPs, they look at your socials,
mm.
publishers, blah blah. They're looking at what are you posting, who's engaging with you, and if that's happening, it makes it very difficult to then um think,
Mm,
oh, I'm just gonna do it my way. I mean, it's not impossible. You can
yeah,
still do
yeah,
that, but you just have to accept the fact that it might take you 5 more years to get to where you're trying to get to. You might have
yeah.
to build that audience one person at a time, because there's still people out there who really care about the art. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That yeah,
Yeah.
there's still people out there that really, really care about the art. They want to see it live. They want to do this, and then there are those who don't. And
Mm,
if you're really chasing the algorithm, then you'll probably lightly fall under the category of those that are like, but then if the authenticity of it then comes in, you have to choose. Do you want to be part of the carefully curated authenticity brigade, or really authentic to who you are and what you want to do? And if you really want to do it the way you want to do it, you have to
Mm,
also accept that there's probably less money up front and there's probably more time that you're gonna
mm,
have to put in to build it. But then when you do, oh, it's amazing because every person that's at your gig or that's
mm,
streaming
mm.
your you know exactly why they're there, you know what I'm saying? Like they know
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
what they're
yeah,
asking for. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
interesting. Just thinking back to what you were saying earlier about that people sort of pick out these sort of buzzwords or
Yes.
phrases.
Yes.
I kind of fell into that in the intro by picking out
Hmm.
that phrase off blue off Blue Dream. I do this
Oh,
all the
Blue
time.
Dreams.
I,
Yeah.
I like sort of
Yeah.
get on my high horse and start talking about all this stuff, and then I fall into exactly the same trap that I'm trying to
Yes.
I'm
It's
complaining about.
impossible not
You
to.
know?
It's impossible not to. We all do it. We all do it, and that's what I'm saying. It seeps into your subconscious as a creative.
Yeah,
Even if you don't want to, you'll find yourself in that thing because that's just the way how things are now. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I
yeah.
think being aware is more important. I think if you're aware of it, then you can sort of control it a little bit more. Like,
Mm,
okay, now I'm leaning too much into it. Let me dial it back a little bit. Let me, you know what I mean? But yeah, you
yeah.
kind of have to be aware.
Well, maybe we'll come on to some of those sort of things like genre
Mhm.
and things in a minute. But just
Yes.
on that phrase, if you love something, let it go. But what if it doesn't come back? I mean, that's
Hmm.
that is something that makes you. It certainly made me, kind of stop and think. And
Yes.
I'm just kind of wondering what was the inspiration behind. I mean, that's a fabulous track, and it's a wonderful sort of phrase to put in. But what
Mm,
was your kind of
thank you.
inspiration behind that?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the feedback on that. And
Not at all.
um ooh. Okay, that song or that track, well, I don't know, that piece, whatever you want to call it, because
Mm,
it's not a traditional song, but it's also
mm,
not, it's not poor. It's a fusion between
mm,
traditional poetry and hip hop, which is also poetry in a way, but it's sort
yeah,
of like so. And also culture to it, which is brings in that flamenco sound and
yeah,
infused with it, so the inspiration really behind that was, if you listen to the song that comes prior to that, right, which is
mm,
I want to know.
mm,
It's sort of a continuation of that same story, but then
mm,
it's like, want to know. I'm talking about a breakup or a situation whereby you realize that the person you thought you were in love with, or they were in love with you had this thing going on, wasn't the person that you thought they were. And
yeah,
maybe they then you find out that when people hit you with the it's not you, it's me.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
uh, yeah,
yes,
yeah, but
yes,
I need space, I need time. And then you find out that, oh, actually you didn't need time, you were with somebody else and you just moved
mm,
on, and you
mm,
could have just told me that, but you didn't. You kind of conniving. So what
yeah,
I'm doing, blue dreams, really. I don't have to explain the phrase for blue dreams. I'm sure you know what blue dreams is,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so, 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 so when you fuse blue dreams and what it's supposed to do, which is kind of make you mellow, and
mm,
kind of thoughtful
yeah,
and introspective. So
yeah,
you're kind of thinking back and you sat there and your conscious is elevated, which is something I say in there. I'm like, the higher I levitate, the more my
mm,
conscious is elevated, something like that, right?
mm,
You start thinking deeply. You're like, really? So you really wasn't the person I thought you was, and
yeah,
maybe did I really love you, or did you love me?
mm,
Was it always like this, or was it what? Like you start asking yourself, when the trust is broken in your relationship,
mm,
right?
mm,
Let's say for example, I don't know, you steal 10 quid from me, right? You steal
yeah,
10 quid from me. It's only 10 quid. You might come and be like, oh, it was only 10 quid. But then
Mm.
it's the principle. Now I'm like, what
Yeah.
else have you stolen that I don't know about? Do you know what I'm saying? I'm
Absolutely.
like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
is it just the 10 quid, or was there something else that you did? Or should I trust you? Should I, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Should I, can I borrow you my car? Would you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yeah.
questioning everything about you now. So that's
Mm.
what I'm doing on that song, Blue Dreams. And then by the
Mm.
end of it, when I say, if you love something, let it go. But
Mm.
what if it doesn't come back? That's me basically wrapping up the part where I'm like, look, I do love you. I do care about you as a person. Um,
Mm.
and but I also realize that maybe I'm not the person that you want to be with, or
Mm.
maybe you've got your own demons that you're fighting. So maybe should I let you go?
Mm.
Uh, but also afraid that what if you don't come back if I let you go? So
Mm.
because obviously you're not over this person just yet. So
Yeah.
you're kind of like, should I let you go? But then you're also like, what if they don't? What if they don't come back? If I let them go and and then that's it. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my god.
Like,
Yeah. No, no,
yeah.
I totally sort of think back to when when I was a lot younger, but totally think back to that, and it's almost
Hmm.
that kind of dilemma, that
Yes.
little annoying thing that you can't get out your head.
Yes. 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 That's
It's
exactly
like
what I was doing there.
I know things are kind of slipping away here.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
what I
Yes.
should do, but I can't quite
You haven't got the courage to
get
do
over
it.
it.
Yeah.
There's the courage. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's a
Yeah. Yeah.
courage
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
fear
Yeah.
thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. 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 And that's exactly why I left it open, because
Mm.
I could have carried on and said something else, but I thought that was a good way to end it, to say, what if it doesn't come back? And then you can fill in the blank for yourself
Yeah,
to say, look,
absolutely.
if it
Yeah.
doesn't come back, then I'll be okay, or maybe I'm not gonna be okay. Maybe I'm gonna
Yeah.
start sending 1,000 text messages every night. I don't know what you would do, but
Yes.
it's because we throw that phrase around a lot. If you love something, let it go. But
Oh,
nobody ever really
absolutely.
discusses what happens if you let it go, because they
Yeah.
say, well, if it comes back, then it's meant to be yours. But what if it doesn't come back? What
Y
happens then?
What do you do? How do you then kinda get out of that? Get out
Yes.
of
How do you process
that kind
that?
of depth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Um, thinking back to I'm really interested in, our as kind of humans, our sort of formative influences. So things that you kind of remember from childhood,
Hmm.
that have basically kind of like formed, that stay with you and that form who you are as a person, and
Yeah.
how you kind of like evolve, whether that's kind of musically, or who you used to kind of hang out with. Because I always think that when we're very young, even sort of before
Yes.
going to school, that's kind of like the sort of the purest version of us, so I almost
Hmm.
like sort of untainted, and by society and things like that, and we're in lots of ways sort of very innocent, and then society gets hold of us, and things happen. So I just love thinking about that, and because I've thought a lot about this myself, for me,
Hmm.
about stuff that happened for me, and how that sort of shaped who I am today.
Yeah. Oof, I mean, my earlier years, a mumble jumble of a whole lot of stuff. I mean, because I've grown up in different places, and
Mm,
my parents were always moving around. So
yeah.
born in the city of Joburg, um, in the early 90s, just as apartheid was coming to an end. So there was quite a lot of
Mm,
turmoil going on over there. I'm sure you know all about South African
yeah.
apartheid, the
Yeah.
release of Nelson Mandela, and blah blah blah. So I
Yeah.
was born around that time when all that was going on.
Mm,
It was a very South Africa is a very dimensional country. It's a very multiracial, multilingual, multi. So it's
mm,
those things kind of shaped me in a way, because for example, one of my best friends as a child was part Indian, part uh, Jewish, which I don't know
mm,
how that happened, but it
mm,
did. And
mm,
that's the sort of thing that happens in South Africa. A Jewish
mm.
person ends up with a practicing Hindu person, and you're
Yeah.
like, these are very two different worlds. How did you,
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure. Yeah.
But that's how it was. And then he's
Yeah.
my friend, and I'm a black boy, and he's whatever he is. And
Yeah.
at that time, we're not even really supposed to be friends because of the climate of how things were, the segregation, and all of that. It
Mm,
wasn't as bad when I was born, obviously, as when what it was prior, but the
yeah.
remnants of it was still
Still
there. You
there.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but this was my best friend, and we would, play together. And to be fair, I wasn't even racially conscious at the time. I'm a child. I didn't even realize I wasn't supposed to be friends with this kid.
Mm,
And
mm,
luckily for me, I grew up in I would say middle class family.
mm,
So my mom and my dad, fortunately, they could afford to sort of give us decent tuition to
mm,
decent schools and stuff. So and
mm.
those schools tend to be multiracial as well and multicultural.
Yeah.
So I picked up a
Yeah.
lot of things there because that's influenced my food taste till this day. Like my friend's mom, Anirudha's mom, she was Indian, like I say, and she used to
Mm.
cook for days. Oh my
Oh,
god, and
wow.
food was
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
So like to this
Oh.
day, Asian cuisine is my favorite. So those things started to shape how I saw things. Then I started to see the world as I know nowadays we see the world as one anyway, but I've always seen the world that way. I've always saw the world
Mm,
as just the world. I've never really thought of it as, oh, I'm from Africa, you're from England, you're from
mm,
Philippines. I've always thought people are people and culture is
mm.
culture. So if I like what I like, I would just adopt it. And if I
Yeah.
don't like it, I don't. So this is how I then, bump into things like hip hop down the line, hip hop culture and
Yeah.
uh anime culture and other things that I grew up into. So you sort of pick up these things and you're like, oh, that's really cool, I want to do that. Oh, that's what's that, and then you get curious and you just go down this rabbit hole and you find yourself um into all sorts of things. So yeah, like I
Mm.
mean, yeah, that was pretty much my experience as a child, like in Joburg. But then,
Yeah.
obviously, long story short, I kind of moved. I moved to the UK. I think
Yeah.
2006. Yeah,
Mm,
2006, and then that was a culture shock itself because I was like, I'd only really obviously seen it through TV and what you see about the book from books I'd read, and also from the history that I get taught, about
mm.
British history, the British Empire and all that. So that was my perspective. So then I got here. It wasn't quite Harry Potter, which is something I love till this day. That's what I thought. You know,
Yeah.
platform 9 3/4. You know what I mean? So I was looking forward to King's Cross. Like, oh, mom,
Oh god,
where's
yeah.
you know. Yeah, because that's what I knew. So in Mr. Bean and stuff like with
Yeah.
Rowan Atkinson. So and then you get here and you're like, oh, actually, it's a bit different. I get it, but it's a bit different. The culture is a bit different, and
Mm.
the people with the accents. That's what took me ages. The
The
accents,
accents.
man. It
Yeah,
took
yeah.
me a
Yeah.
long time.
Yes.
So yeah, that was kind of like the basic grasp of how I sort of my life was shaped up early on. But we can get into the specifics of specific things that you want to know. You can sort of like
Yeah, no, no.
nudge.
No, I'm just interested in that. Your kind of physical environment
Yes.
is an interesting one as well about how that sort of shapes you. And of course, there are obviously some people who will kind of stay in the same place for
Yes. Yes.
for large periods of their life. I mean, I remember from one of my very early podcasts. Talking to a musician. She lives in New York now,
Yeah.
and she moved there. I think maybe I'm going to say around about 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
So she's been there about
Mhm.
sort of 14, 15 years
Mhm.
from somewhere between kind of New York and Washington,
Right.
Washington DC. And the environment was completely different. And she said that kind of New York became the fifth member of her band. I guess what she was saying is that the physical environment was kind of so important to her
Yes.
kind of creativity. I think it's an interesting one because some people will really thrive on urban environments. Other people
Mhm.
need more solitude. Um,
Yes.
How was that? How have you found the impact of your kind of physical environment on your creativity in life?
Um, Funny enough, like I mean, right now I'm up north,
Mm,
in Hull, which is in Yorkshire. It's
yeah.
the smaller cities, not much happens over there, but I'm
Mm,
comfortable in that environment. Maybe because I've grown up here most of my adult life, pretty
yeah.
much.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with the surroundings. I'm familiar with the how things work. But then I'm also from Joburg, which is the complete opposite. Big
Opposite.
city,
Yeah.
everything is
Yeah.
fast, everything is on your doorstep. And this is why I guess in the last 5 years or so, I've found a balance between going back and forth between both places because
Mm,
Joburg allows me to if I'm there for 3 to 6 months or whatever, it allows me to tap into a
mm,
different a different energy altogether. Like it's the multi-dimension. It's almost like London, but in a different way. London
mm,
with
mm,
more sun, definitely, and
mm.
better weather.
Yes.
um,
I'm here now, and the sun is shining.
Today it's a lovely day. It's a lovely day today,
Beautiful.
actually. Yeah, yeah, it's actually nice today for a change. But yes, so that allows me to do that, and then sometimes then I come back to Hull and
Mm,
then I go into my little shell where it allows me to then introspect and think and sort of
mm,
strategize. So
mm,
so I found a way how to strike that balance because
mm,
I don't think I'd be able to do it if I was in the constant noise. Like if I was
mm.
in London all the time
Yeah.
or in the bigger cities all the time, I don't think I'd be able to strategize properly. It would probably help in the sense of everything is on your doorstep, right? So you'd be able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
access everything. But the constant go, 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 I think it's a bit much sometimes for me.
It is. Yeah,
So
no, I hear you with that.
yeah, so I like to be able to sort of like go, 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 go for 6 months, maybe 8 months, and then 4 or 5 months where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna retreat, and then have a look at what I've done and then reevaluate, re-strategize, and then So yeah, I can see why the person you're referring to would think that the location is important. It definitely is because
Mm,
it's the people as well. It's the people. It's the different people
totally.
that you meet. People that are different culturally, different from what you're used to. They spark a different thing. Like two
Yeah.
songs like 2 a.m. in Monte Casino don't happen if I'm just chilling in London because there isn't a Monte
Yeah.
Casino in London. Um, and the environment of Monte Casino that inspired that sound, the choices of sound. Because the
Mm,
producer that I worked on that song, GTB. It's a very close friend of mine. We've been friends for at least 15 years now.
mm,
And soon as I came and I was like, this is an idea that I've got. And I had a different beat in mind. So I
mm.
laid down what I had, and then he was like, nah, that's not it. Let's do it like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he already knew the environment and the sound. Because soon as I said Monte Casino, 2 a.m., and he could see that in his head, he's like, yeah, yeah, this is what it needs to feel like. This is the mood. So I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
see how environment, impacts the sound and everything.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned about your childhood friend and the connection with
Yeah.
India. I mean, we just sort of come back. We had 3 months in India from the beginning of basically beginning of January through to the end of March. We sort of
Hmm.
traveled, started in Mumbai and then traveled down the coast
Hmm.
over that time, and spent some time in obviously in Mumbai, the city, and then you know right outside, right out in the countryside, in a just outside a small village. And it was, I mean, the one thing, or one of the big things that I sort of came back with is, um, kind of like a real how important the connection with people is,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
and sometimes uh, you can go from like a busy even a busy town like in terms of geographical size, quite a small town or
Yeah.
relatively small town, but it's really busy and very intense. And then get on a scooter and go outside, and it's drive for 10 minutes, and you have solitude, complete solitude.
Hmm.
and it really sort of like hit the that sort of difference, it, in just in terms of the intensity, but also the like you say the influence that the way that people live their lives and the people themselves have on us as individuals. When we
Yes.
experienced that was just it was mind blowing. 3 months of that, and it was just like, wow, this is something really really special.
Oh, you was out there for 3 months?
Yeah, yeah,
That must have been amazing.
it was incredible. It really was. I mean, it was just so I mean, I could bore you to tears with with all of the story,
No,
but
please give
no,
it
it
to
was
me.
no, it was just so beautiful, and
Hmm.
kind of getting to I think, but by spending some time rather than just spending a day or two in one place and then moving on. We spent time in a particular place for kind of 3 4 weeks, so you get to know the people there and you get to know how the town operates and you get a feel for it. You get to know a little bit of the soul of the place. And that was I think that was a really important thing to do for us. That you get to you get a little bit deeper into what life is like there. It was so phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. This is why whenever I travel to places, I like to spend no less than a month. At the bare minimum, I like to spend a month
Yeah.
or more because you go to a resort somewhere for 5 days, you can't really come back telling me, "Oh, I've been to such and
Yeah.
such." Well, what the hell did
Yeah.
you learn in 5 days? Probably 2 days of it
Absolutely.
you were tired. The other
Yeah.
time, probably maybe just went to the restaurant, got some food, and like I hate
Yeah.
resorts. By the way, I hate resorts.
Absolutely. Yes,
I
yes,
don't
me
like
too. Me
resorts.
too.
I don't like resorts for that same reason because you could take a picture at I don't know Isle of Wight, and it looks
Yeah,
pretty much the same as if you were somewhere in Europe or somewhere else. You know
absolutely
what I mean?
does.
Like any
Yeah.
resort it's all the same, and then you're gonna get all the same chain food places and same this and that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, let's
Yeah,
go grab
yeah.
the KFC. Like, no, I actually want to be
Yes.
in the markets. I want to be where the people are and get live the way they live for a bit. So like you say, get into the soul of the place,
Yeah,
and this is where I then tap into stuff like that when I go. That's how I kind of fell in love with Germany. Actually, I
mm,
think people don't explore Germany very well. That country holds a lot
mm,
of European history.
mm, mm,
It's very rich in that, and I've got cousins that live over there, and they speak the language and everything. So when I would visit, I would
mm.
stay for extended periods of time, and I would go to these places, and I would try things, and I'm like, wow, like I didn't realize Germany had all this going on.
Yeah,
Very different culture, but I would come back inspired to be like, you know what, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to try this, I want to because
yeah,
definitely environment and culture
yeah,
shapes your mindset. And I don't get people that don't have passports. I really don't get it. Like I'm like,
yeah,
I think a passport is one. Might sound a bit controversial, but I think having a passport it might be even more important than voting. If I'm being honest, like
yeah. No, no,
on an
I hear you.
individual level, I mean, on an
Yeah,
individual level, like on a personal level. Yeah,
yeah. No, I totally hear you with that. And I mean, what just listening to you talking there,
yeah,
that sort of the what's speaking to me is your curiosity, for
yes,
new cultures, for new things, and that was one thing that I really felt in India. The people there were so curious to just learn a little bit about us, but
hmm,
what life was like, and I think curiosity is such an important thing, to have, and I sometimes wonder, going back to a little bit around, not necessarily social media, but the availability of information
yes,
is so vast that I wonder sometimes, is it easy to become lazy in what you want to explore for yourself, what you want to go and find for yourself? Because I think what you explained there about Germany, but and all these different countries, that going
hmm,
there and spending time
hmm.
and wanting to learn, that curiosity, I just think it's so important for us.
It's very important. I think it's just to allude to what you just mentioned right there in terms of with the social media and other stuff. If it makes us more lazy because of the availability, the availability of
Mm,
information and stuff like that. It is a gift and a curse because
yeah.
um again, it goes back to where we started. You can travel to Dubai, but
Mm,
then are you there to really learn how Dubai is, or are you there for the monuments that everybody knows? Like,
mm,
okay, Burj Khalifa, blah blah blah. Okay, I've got a photo
yeah.
there. I've got a photo there, and then you
Yeah.
come back with a lot of memorabilia. But then, did you really absorb the soul of what Dubai is all about and what the culture, what the people? Probably not, because you were more caught up with the props rather than the
Yeah.
culture. You know what I'm saying? So, but
Yeah.
then on the other hand, the availability of information makes it easy for people like us who are curious in a
Mm,
real way to find information and be like, oh, I might have never went to Croatia, but I found one, two, three, four, and I really want to
mm,
go experience that. So
mm,
it's kind
mm.
of a gift and a curse. It's both sides. It depends on how you want to use it, I suppose. You know what I
It's
mean?
true.
So yeah,
I do agree with you on that for sure. I think it is. It can be a, you know, a gift and a curse. It's great to have the information, but also there are potential sort of downsides. Yeah.
yeah.
Another thing that I'm sort of interested in
Hmm.
is this idea of emotional intelligence.
Yes.
You know, so you know, things like empathy and
Hmm.
you know, self-awareness,
Yeah.
how to, you know, almost self-regulate ourselves, things like that. I mean, how have you, and I still can't believe that it's not taught in schools, even sort of preschool. I just
Hmm.
think it's so important. But I mean, for well, I don't know why I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah.
should surprise me these days. But I mean, for that, for emotional intelligence, that sort of thing. I mean, how does that sort of figure in your life?
I think since around 2017, funny enough, it was a book called Black Privilege
Mm,
by radio host Charlemagne the God from the Breakfast Club.
yeah.
That book sparked my mental health and emotional health journey.
Mm,
Um because that was just him telling his personal story and what he's experienced and stuff like that. And then
mm,
what was written in that book. I mean, he's from Monk's Corner somewhere in South Carolina. I'm
mm,
from Joburg, South Africa. Two very different worlds. He's from a
mm,
small town. I'm from a big city. But certain things he was saying in there resonated with me
mm,
on an emotional level and on a mental level, really. So
mm,
and then I started going on this rabbit hole of trying to find out more about what does it mean? What does
mm,
emotional intelligence mean? What does
mm,
mental health mean? What does
yeah.
what's all of this? So and then you start finding a lot more things, and then you end up finding, the Deepak Chopras and the
Yes.
um
Yeah.
damn, what's his name? The British Indian guy with the podcast. Damn, what's his
Oh,
name?
yes. Yes, I know who you mean. Uh,
Damn, don't.
Jay Shetty.
Jay
Uh,
Shetty. There you
yeah.
go. You start
Yeah.
finding the Jay
Yeah.
Shettys and a few people like that, and you're like,
Mm,
oh, okay, so now I get it. You know what I mean? So,
mm, mm,
how does it factor into my life? I definitely also becoming a dad, a girl dad actually,
mm,
because I've got two girls. I got twins.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think girls just bring out a different side of you than boys probably. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I started to become more emotionally aware of certain things, and I started to become more sensitive to certain things and more. I'm a work in progress. I'm not, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
started to
Uh,
kind of
I think
understand
we
a
all are.
little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, starting to have
Yeah.
empathy, right? So of certain things. Because before, listen, coming from where I come from,
Mm,
life moves very quickly. And it's kind of like living in. I've never lived in London, but I've frequented London a lot over the years. You know
mm.
how it is in London. People running up and down those tube stations
Oh,
and people
yes.
minding their own thing. Nobody cares. Everybody's
Nobody
doing what
cares.
they're doing.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't really stop to think if this person is old, young, whatever. You're trying to get to where you're trying to go. You don't care if they're
Absolutely.
having a bad day, good day. That's none of your business. In New York, it's even worse. They're just straight up rude over there. So
Mm,
when you come from that, it can kind of make
mhm.
your empathy and your consideration for others a little bit
Yeah.
jaded
I
because
hear you. Yeah.
yes, you're only thinking from your own perspective.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I was always thinking before. I was always thinking, well, um, I'm just gonna do me, like even in relationships, right? So I'd be like, for example,
Kind of self-preservation. You're sort of looking after
yes,
yourself in this. Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
No, I
So
hear
in
you. Yeah.
relationships, I would always be like, um, let's just say, for example, you're having a casual relationship with somebody, and in
Mm,
my mind, I'd be like, look, if I tell you it's casual, if you
mm,
catch feelings, that's your problem.
mm,
That
mm,
is a very selfish thing to do. Yes, okay,
mm.
it's true. I am telling you, so you have the choice to choose whether you want to engage or not. But at the
Yeah.
same time, to totally not take into consideration that this person might get hurt, that, or take
Mm,
into consideration that maybe this person is not built for that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Maybe they're gonna say yes because they're trying to make me happy, but
Mm,
then I have to have the empathy to be like, you know what, that's not something you should be doing. Maybe I should just walk away from this.
yeah.
Um,
It's a good
but those
point.
are things that I
Mm,
wouldn't think about, at some point. But then with more education around sensitivity and consideration for others, and then sometimes you have to make decisions that not necessarily in the best interest for you, but they're the best
mm.
decision for both parties or for
I
everybody
agree.
involved. You know what I mean? So yeah, so it's a journey. It's a journey.
No, it's that's a really interesting example and kind of situation that is, with the the birth of your daughters that has
Yeah.
kind of brought that along with sort of some reading that you've been doing. It's interesting
Mhm.
how it comes into our lives.
It does. It
You know
does.
what stage it enters, what those kind of trigger events are almost.
Yeah. I mean, at what point did you figure out like that you had to either grow emotionally and try and have more empathy and stuff? Was there like an aha moment for you or?
I don't. I don't know if there was a kind of like a sort of light bulb on moment. I
Mhm.
think it was just something. I mean, it's interesting because it's an interesting question that actually because I think back to when I was when I was a kid,
Mhm.
and so for me, sort of politically, like my kind of politics and outlook on life was really sort of shaped by my dad,
Right.
and he was he was brought up, with in the north of England again, the place that I was
Yeah.
born, with nothing. He had nothing, and
Right.
he kind of educated himself.
Mhm.
He went on to become a mechanical engineer,
Mhm.
and but so his kind of ethos was very socialist, in his
Right.
in his in his kind of outlook, and I think that started to that definitely had an impact on me, like, in terms of politics and who I voted for,
Mhm.
but also, my outlook on life and I guess that equality across
Mhm.
across the population, so it was always sort of there, but that doesn't stop me from, at times, being, thinking about my personality and sort of who I am, and then events that have happened to me over my life, where
Mhm.
I've been selfish and I've not had empathy.
Yeah.
So for me, certainly a work in progress. I particularly
Mhm.
became interested in it as a sort of subject probably about, I'm going to say, about 8 years ago.
Okay.
When I started thinking about what do we, because the world was sort of changing so quickly, it's very volatile, and
Yes.
it's technology is changing, demographics are changing, and I was thinking about, what do we need to survive? Traditionally it's been, around, um, very tangible skills, like, can you can you use a calculator? Can
Mhm.
you know, do certain type of maths and things like that?
Yeah.
And I think that things like emotional intelligence, things like you know some of the things we talked about, like adaptability and
Mhm.
curiosity. I think
Mhm.
if not more important, they're at least as important as some of these more tangible skills that that we may have. So that's where my kind of interest in it, and I think with
Mhm.
that, then that made me then start to look introspectively at myself and sort of
Mm.
work out where I sort of fell short, and then start to so for you know it's again like you said for yourself. It's a work in progress. I think it's something that's always kind of evolving, and sometimes I find myself having to stop myself, and think, hang on, is this really the right thing to do?
Mhm.
You do naturally sort of question yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
there's and, the- and there's
That's
yeah,
very
go on.
interesting. Yeah. Sorry. No. Go on. Go on.
I
Sorry.
was going to say that I mean the other thing that I sometimes struggle with is where if I work on something on a project or a piece of work
Yeah.
and this is where almost like the kind of self-regulation sort of comes in. If
Mhm.
somebody, when you work on something, it's kind of your piece of work. You own it, and
Yes.
you can be protective of it. And when you ask for somebody else or somebody else gives their opinion on it, and it's sometimes critical, and
Mhm.
critical is good. Critical is good, but sometimes I can be like a bit spiky about somebody saying, "Well, I would maybe what have you thought about doing it this way or that?" And I'm like,
Mm.
no, no, this is my piece of work."
Yeah. 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 No. Yeah. I totally get that because as a creative myself, we're sensitive. I think it was Erica Badu who said this. I'm sensitive. I'm an artist. Of course, I'm
Mm,
sensitive
I'm
about my
sensitive.
art.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like so, and I get it because it's like what will have gone into creating a piece of art or anything, a
yeah,
project, whatever it is.
yeah,
You would have thought about all the possible ways you can do this thing, and you decided on doing it in that particular way for a particular
yeah,
reason. Right?
yeah.
So when somebody criticizes it, it's definitely a reflex sort of reaction to be like, "How dare you?" type of
How
thing,
dare you?
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
What I've
so
created is perfect. How can you criticize it?
exactly. And it really does take a form of emotional intelligence to sort of like kind of give it a few minutes, if not a day or two or whatever, to
Mm,
really just not say anything to whatever
yeah,
they've said,
yeah,
and to let the emotions get out of it, and then think about it. And then you're like, okay, maybe they had a point, or maybe you know what? No, I'm sticking to my guns. Actually, do you know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
Because I know I'm like that. Sometimes, I'm
Mm.
like that. Like with people at my publishers or labels or whatever. Sometimes they're like, we think we could do. I'm like, no. But then
Well,
later on, I'll think about it, and I'm like, actually, okay, you have a point.
it's interesting. I'm thinking about it from your side,
Yeah,
where you're and this kind of like almost like double approach or
yeah,
kind of situation that you may find yourself in, where let's say for just to take hypothetically, you're working with a collaborator, whether that's
yeah,
a sort of musician or a
hmm,
producer.
yeah,
And let's just take the producer. So say for the producer doesn't,
yeah,
makes a suggestion about your work, and
yeah,
then on the reverse side about when the producer is doing their piece of work, you're not
yeah,
entirely comfortable with that about how
hmm,
you talk to them and how you express what you feel about it. If you go in and saying, "This is shit.
yes.
Yeah, I dislike. I don't like that." Blah blah. The reaction that you get might be is going to be completely different to how if you approach it a different way. So I just find these kind of interplays really interesting. But that's me. I'm a nerd.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you say that because that's the most difficult part of being in the showbiz, right?
Mm, mm,
That is the absolutely most difficult part about being in this space, because
mm,
building that team of people you trust and that trust you is absolutely difficult,
mm.
because not every
Yeah.
producer, like for example, just because Pharrell Williams is an amazing producer, it doesn't mean that she should be in a studio with Beyonce. Just because
Mm,
Beyonce is an amazing vocalist doesn't mean she should be in a studio with Dr. Dre,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
chemistry matters, how they communicate matters, how they vision things matters, right? So
Mm,
all these things go into play. It took me absolutely years of trialing different people in America, in Australia, in the UK, and blah
mm.
blah blah, to find a system that works for me.
Interesting. Wow.
Um, and within that system, I've got people that I trust for certain things.
Mm,
Okay. So if a certain person says this mix is not right, I trust them fully, and I know that what they're saying is in my best interest.
yeah.
Even if maybe, let's say, I don't know, I've just paid you to do a mix for me, £1,000, and then I take it to this friend, this co-worker that I work with, and they're like, bro, that ain't it. Of course, I'm gonna be like, oh my, what do you mean? I just paid £1,000. But at the same time, because I know this person, I know
Mm,
when they say something, it's never just, you know what I mean, just to say something.
yeah. Yeah.
Therefore,
It's
I'm
not.
gonna, yeah, I try to woosa and be like, okay, woosa, woosa, and
Mm,
then I ask them, okay, why do you say that? They'll be like, look, the top there, the mids there, the filter
mm,
there, blah blah
mm.
blah. And then I'm like, okay, so how do you fix this? They'd be like, well, either I give you the information that you need to go back to that person and say, look, can you fix this, or maybe we make a plan B, right? So
Interesting.
that's worked to my advantage. I didn't want to hear that. I would have rather you said absolutely amazing, because I've spent top dollar. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's many times my publisher's done that. Like sometimes I'll send a song and they're like, and I think the song is great, and they'll be like, that's 50% there. It's not quite there. And I'm like, what do you mean? But then,
Wow.
then
Yeah.
I go back and I do it, and then they're like, yeah, that's it. And then when I listen, maybe a month later, I'm like, you know what? They had a point, because it
If
definitely
so,
does sound better.
if you get that sort of situation where somebody says, "Okay, I think you're 50% there," and you're
Yeah.
coming from the point of view you think, "Yeah, do you know what? I'm pretty happy with that." I mean, how do you does that just motivate you even more to go back and and almost maybe not redo it, but just to look for those
To
improvements?
challenge yourself to get that
Mm,
extra
mm,
50?
yeah,
That's a very interesting question. Because there are certain situations where I've stood my ground and I think I was right to do so.
yeah.
And then there's other situations where I folded a bit and I was like, okay, let me go see if I can dig deeper to find this like 50% you're looking for.
Mm,
And I think that boils down to what is the motivation behind that particular project, right?
yeah,
So, for example, I do sync stuff. I work on stuff for sync. I've worked with, like stuff that goes on. Well, sync is short for synchronization. So that's like
yeah,
the stuff that, for people that don't know, it's basically when you synchronize visual with audio. So it could be a commercial, like a jingle. It could be, I don't know, a Netflix show. It could be a movie. It could be whatever. So
mm,
when you work with publishers, you tend to do stuff like that, right?
yeah,
And usually supervisors and people that work in that space, they know what they're talking about, because they
mm,
pitch songs day in, day out. So when they tell you, look, if you change that line and that line and that line, you're getting closer to what you need to get to,
mm,
then it's probably in your best interest to listen. And probably not always right, but
mm,
their ratio of getting it right is probably higher than yours. So you probably
mm,
should take heed of what they're saying.
mm,
And then there's stuff where it's your vision.
yeah,
For example, mixed feelings. That's my
mm,
vision. I
mm,
want it to sound a certain way. I want it to feel a certain way. I want certain features a certain way. So if I come and I say, look, I want a choir to sing this part, and then they're like,
mm,
no, I think you should just get Katy Perry to do it.
mm,
No, that's not what I'm hearing in my head.
yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying? This is my
yeah,
baby. This is my baby. So let me create it the way I want to, and I'm willing to take the consequences. Should it come out and people criticize me and say, "Oh, that's
yeah,
rubbish," I'll take it, because I did it my way. Because there's
Which
nothing worse than yeah. Sorry, go on.
no. Sorry to interrupt. No, sorry. I was just getting very excited with what you were saying there. So carry on,
Yeah, yeah.
please.
And I was just about to say, basically, just to wrap that up, because I did it my way, which is that a
Mm.
Beatles song? Is that a Beatles song? My way? There's a song called
Uh,
I
Frank
know there's
Sinatra.
oh, Frank Sinatra. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I did it my way. So basically, if I did it my way,
Mm.
even if it doesn't do well commercially or whatever, just to come back to that thing 10 years later and say I did it,
Yeah.
that's enough for me. Do you know what
So,
I'm
so,
saying? So yeah.
this is interesting. So this is interesting where the role of your instinct comes
Hmm.
in. You know, about what instinctively feels right to you and what sort of feels. So if if you
Yes.
kind of cave on something, it's
Yes.
like, okay, yeah, I've caved. It doesn't feel right. Or,
Yes.
do you know what I mean? It's an
Never
interesting
do that.
kind of this.
Never, ever, ever do that as an
So
artist.
so what how important is your instinct in what you do?
I think it's the most important thing for me personally because
Mm,
even though I've just explained to you that sometimes I've had to cave for
mm,
certain reasons, but it's also because my instinct told me, look, this person is right, or
yes,
this
yes,
person, this is
yeah,
for. So it's always your instinct telling you, guiding you, letting you know, like, look, yeah, you probably should change that or think about it in another way. Or maybe you have it. Like I used to work with a particular producer from London. He's done some stuff, platinum
mm,
stuff, and he's quite big.
mm,
And he would send me tracks, and I would write a hook or whatever, and then he would be like, "I know you have it in your drag. That ain't it. That ain't the one." And at
mm.
that time, I'm like, "Bro, what you mean?" He's like, "Look, we need to finish this by tonight, and you've got about 3 4 hours. You can come up with something." And I'm like, and then I'll
Wow,
be sat there like pacing up and down, trying to come up with stuff, come up with stuff. And then eventually I'll get something and I'm like, oh, he's gonna like this. And I'll record it. And he was like, yes, that's it. That's the one.
wow, wow.
So now, him pushing me, knowing that I've got it,
Mm,
and me um trusting my instincts that his instincts are right.
yes,
Um it sort of works out and it goes back to what emotional intelligence is, right? Because half
yeah,
of it is ego.
yes,
Removing your ego out of the
yeah,
way sometimes can get you where you need to go because the
very
reason
true.
why you're saying no is because your ego is wounded. You're like, what you mean this is not the best thing? I just
Absolutely
made this.
right. I completely
So your
agree.
ego's like letting you know, like, no, don't cave, don't cave, don't cave. But then you're supposed to, and then that's where you remove yourself from the situation and remove the ego, and then you weigh it and just say, look, if you really feel strongly about what you've created and say, look, this is what I've created and I feel strongly about it. And if I
Mm,
change it, I'm not gonna sleep well at night because this is
mm,
really how I wanted it to come out. Then you shouldn't cave because
mm.
at the end of the day, what I say to people, I always say to people, I don't care if you're Beyonce, you're Jay Z, you're Eminem, you're Frank Sinatra, whoever you are, whether you win 100 Grammys or one
Mm,
Grammy or no Grammy, when it's all said and done, all you have is your work that you've done. And if you're not satisfied by that, you're
mm,
going to be a very miserable person.
yeah,
Do it the way you want to do it. Have some help along the way, but make sure that it still aligns with the vision that you have for yourself. Because
yeah,
when it's all said and done, when you're looking back at all you've done, all you have is your creations. And if you can put your hands up and say, I did it my best, the best that I could, and if that wasn't enough, fair enough. Then, yeah, that's how I kind of operate. Really, that's the sort of uh that's the sort of attitude that I have towards creativity and art.
well, I think that sounds like a wonderful place to stop because we've done about an hour, and honestly, I could carry on talking to you. I think it's been
Yeah,
no, it's been so fascinating. I mean, just
yeah,
listening to you and a real kind of pleasure. But to sort of finish with that, what your sort of vision is and stuff
yeah,
is perfect. So, Lawrence, thanks
yeah.
so much for
Oh
coming
no,
on.
it's been amazing. It's been amazing. Thank you,
Really
thank you
great.
for